Intro.
Okay guys, good day sa inyong lahat, and now we will discuss the first module in the course subject na Highway and Railroad Engineering. So ang title ng ating first module is Introduction to Highway Engineering and Analysis. Okay, so let's proceed with the next slide. Okay, so introduction. So we have highways. So before that, I will just explain kung ano ba yung meron sa subject na ito. Okay, so yung highways and railroad engineering, nagmula kasi siya sa isang type ng engineering. So meron tayong tinatawag na transportation engineering. So yung transportation engineering na yan, meron kasi siyang apat na division. So the first one, we have the roadways. Ito yung mga highway. So dyan papasok si highway, yung mga arsada natin, or other infrastructure na may kinalaman sa roadways. Another type of transportation engineering is yung tinatawag nating railroad. So yan yung, for example, yung mga PNR, MRT, LRT, o basta yung ano niya is has something to do with rail o yung mga rails ng tren. Next to that, we have also the waterways. So dyan papasok yung mga pier. Ayan. And last will be the airways. So yung mga airport natin, paliparan. So these two, ito ay example ng through land travel. Okay? And then this one, itong ang ating mga pier na ito, yung mga waterways natin, this is through the use of water or sea or ocean travel. Okay, and the last one, so ito yung sa in terms of himpapawid or air travel. Yung mga aeroplano, helicopter, hot air balloon, etc. Okay, so ayan lang, i-share ko lang kung saan nanggaling ba yung ating course na Highway and Railroad Engineering. So, ang dinidiscuss pa lang natin guys is yung through land travel, no? So, meron nga tayo again, dalawang klase. We have the roadway and the railroad. Okay, so again, balik tayo. So, by introduction, what is highways? Okay, so mas maganda siguro kung erase na natin yung nasulat. So, kopyahin nyo na lang ha sa inyong notes. So, erase all on So, highway plays a key role in the development and sustainability of human civilization from ancient times up to the present. Next, continue to dominate the transportation system, providing critical access for the acquisition of natural resources and industrial production, retail marketing, and population mobility. Okay, so let's now proceed with the next slide. So this time, 1.2 highways and the economy. It is difficult to overstate the influence that highway transportation has on the economy of nations. Highway systems have a direct effect on industries that supply vehicle and equipment to support highway transportation and industries that are involved in highway construction and maintenance. Highway systems are also vital to manufacturing and retail supply chains and distribution systems and serve as regional and national economic engines. So, alamin natin yung highway economy. The next slide. To the highway economy, the direct influence that highways have also extends on to the construction and maintenance of highways, with over $200 billion in annual expenditures in the US alone. This too has an enormous impact on employment and other aspects of the economy. So sinasabi lang dyan guys, yung ating kasing highway economy, so imagine sa US pa lang, because of this highway transportation, maraming sasakyan yung binibili dyan. Tama? Sabi dito, so 16 million, around 16 million annually na vehicle. And at the same time, ito is nagproduce ng $400 billion in terms of sales and produces more than 1 million jobs in manufacturing and manufacturing supplier industries. So yung mga bumubuo ng mga sasakyan. And aside from that, syempre yung sasakyan mo needs also maintenance. So yung mga nagtatrabaho dyan, so syempre yung sasakyan mo naman masisira at nasisira yan. Tama? And yung iyong highway din, so that also contributes dun sa mga insurance. So yun, nag-provide din siya ng trabaho. So yun ding yung mga nagbebenta ng mga kotse, mga agent. So again, that's another source of source of employment. Wala ako sa words. Okay, so let's now proceed with the next slide. Ay, meron pa pala yan eh. So the US, more than 15% of average household income is spent on highway vehicle purchases, maintenance, and other vehicle expenditures. As a consequence, the industries providing vehicles and vehicle services for highways transportation have an enormous economic influence. So yan lang din yung sinabi ko. Ano? So next is the supply chain. So 1.2.2, so industries have become increasingly dependent on their supply chains to reduce cost and remain competitive. For example, most manufacturing industries today rely on just-in-time delivery to reduce inventory-related cost, which can be substantial percentage of total cost in many industries. So yung ano mo kasi dito, yung role ng highway mo, meron kasi tayong mga manufacturing industries kung saan instead na mag-provide pa sila ng mga warehouse para mag-store ng mga inventory or yung mga parts na kailanganin nila para mabuo yung isang item, ang ginagawa na lang nila is yung JIT delivery or yung just-in-time delivery. So kung kailan nila almost kailangan na yung item na yun, tsaka nila o-orderin. So dyan papasok yung iyong highway transportation. So kung maganda ang access ng mga or yung mode of transportation, kung mabilis na papadala yung iyong materyales papunta dun sa delivery, pagdi-deliverahan, so maganda yung magiging nito, flow. Kasi for example, if magkaroon ka ng delay dyan, for example, may nasirang tulay dito sa part na to and hindi ma-deliver yung item na yun, so syempre magiging loss yan dun sa part ng manufacturing industry. So magkakos ng delay yan, so syempre yung tao papasok pero wala namang na-produce na product or outcome. So ayan. Okay, so let's proceed with the next one. So this is 1.2.3 economic development. So basahin natin guys. So it has long been recognized that highway construction and improvements to the highway network can positively influence economic development. Measuring the economic development impacts of a specific highway project is not an easy task because such measurements must be made in the context of regional and national economic trends. Still, the effect that highways can have on economic development is yet another example of the far-reaching economic influences of highway transportation. Okay, so ang gusto lang kasing sabihin dito sa 1.2.3 na ito, economic development, is yung highway, so yan kasi yung nagdidictate kung saan may possibility na magkakaroon ng economic trend doon sa lugar na yon or businesses, magsusulputan dyan yung mga businesses. Kasi one example of this, hindi ko na lang papangalanan, isang real estate business. So siya, meron siyang housing. Ang advantage kasi nito, yung may-ari kasi nito ng real estate business na to, yung anak niya is nagtatrabaho sa DPWH. So mataas yung position niya doon. So syempre, meron siyang idea kung saan itatayo yung mga arsada. So ang gagawin naman ng part ng real estate business na yon, so since may idea sila kung saan itatayo yung mga karsadang to, yung mga highway na to, ang gagawin nila, bibilhin nila yung mga lupa na akala nung iba, since karamihan bukiran pa lang ito. So syempre, sa part nila, advantage yun kasi alam nila may itatayong arsada dito. So ang gagawin nila, bibilhin nila yung lupa sa murang halaga. And then, i-develop nila yung lugar na yon. And then, ang kasi dyan, once na nagkaroon ng development no sa highway mo, mag-a-appraise kasi yung value ng property kasi may highway na yan eh. So tataas yung value ng lupa. So it's a matter of business, economic development. Okay, so next will be the cut muna dun, Vince. Okay, so this time let's now proceed with the next slide. So ito ay tungkol naman ngayon sa highways, energy, and the environment. So as the energy demands and supply vary and nations become increasingly concerned about the environmental impacts, the role that highway transportation play has come under close scrutiny. As a primary consumer of fossil fuels and a major contributor to airborne pollution, highway transportation is an obvious target for energy conservation and environmental impact mitigation efforts. The energy and environmental impacts of highway transportation are clearly substantial and an important consideration in the design and maintenance of highway facilities and the development and implementation of policies affecting highway transportation. Okay guys, so ang sinasabi lang naman dyan sa highways, energy, and the environment, ang highway transportation kasi is one of the contributor to airborne pollution. Kasi siya ay nagbaburn ng fossil fuels and ayon sa data na nandito, about 25% ng greenhouse emission is nanggagaling in terms of highway transportation. And 35% of that is nitrous oxide emission or known as NOx. And 25% of volatile organic compound emission or yung VOC. Kung saan itong both compound na ito is major contributor sa pagnipis ng ating ozone layer. Aside from that, 50% of all carbon monoxide emission is also known to produce carcinogen. Again, isa rin siyang masamang compound. So with that, kailangan mag-implement tayo kung paano natin mababawasan itong environmental impact dun sa ating surroundings. So, ayan, so through research and development, so unti-unting ini-improve natin yung mga sasakyan. So kung i-compare mo naman before, yung mga sasakyan noon at saka ngayon, so 'di ba, mas clean naman yung emission ng mga bagong model ng sasakyan ngayon. And ang sinasabi rin kasi dito, isang paliwanag din is, for example, i-compare mo yung weather kapag nandun ka sa Maynila, sa medyo syudad na lugar, compared do sa mga lugar na probinsya. Diba, feeling mo mas malinis yung hangin, which is correct naman, kasi sa pagdami ng sasakyan na nandun sa isang lugar, so pagdami ng mga dangerous compound na present sa iyong atmosphere. Okay, so let's proceed with the next slide. Oops. Highway as part of the transportation system. It's important to keep in mind that highway transportation is part of a larger transportation system, which includes air, rail, water, and pipeline transportation. So, ito yung sinasabi ko sa inyo kanina. So, again, yung highway is just a part of a bigger transportation system. In this system, highways are the dominant mode of most passenger and freight movements. So, yung highway kasi yung pinakamadaling mode ng transportation system, which move most of the passenger and freight movements, yung mga shipping, ganyan, delivery, etc. So, interfaces between modes such as those water ports, airports, and rail terminals create interesting transportation problems, but if handled correctly, can greatly improve the efficiency of the overall transportation system. So, maganda kasi dito dapat synchronous yung mga iba't ibang transportation system, kaya nilang mag-adjust sa bawat isa. Ganun. So, ito maraming pwedeng maging problema, but if ma-perfect mo yung process na yun, maganda yung kakalabasan. Okay, so let's proceed with 1.4, which is all about the highway as part of the transportation system. It's important to keep in mind that highway transportation is part of a larger transportation system, which includes air, rail, water, and pipeline transportation. So, ito yung sinasabi ko sa inyo kanina. So, again, yung highway is just a part of a bigger transportation system. In this system, highways are the dominant mode of most passenger and freight movements. So, yung highway kasi yung pinakamadaling mode ng transportation system, which move most of the passenger and freight movements, yung mga shipping, ganyan, delivery, etc. So, interfaces between modes such as those water ports, airports, and rail terminals create interesting transportation problems, but if handled correctly, can greatly improve the efficiency of the overall transportation system. So, maganda kasi dito dapat synchronous yung mga iba't ibang transportation system, kaya nilang mag-adjust sa bawat isa. Ganun. So, ito maraming pwedeng maging problema, but if ma-perfect mo yung process na yun, maganda yung kakalabasan. Okay, so let's now proceed to 1.5, or the highway transportation and the human element. Okay, so within the highway transportation system, passenger option includes single-occupant private vehicles, multi-occupant private vehicles, and public transportation modes. It is critical to develop a basic understanding of the effect that highway-related projects and policies may have on the individual highway modes of travel, because the distribution of travel among modes will strongly influence overall highway system performance. So in 1.5.1, the passenger transportation modes and traffic congestion. So yun, severe traffic condition. Okay, so basahin natin. Of the available urban transportation modes such as bus, commuter train, subway, and private vehicle, and other private vehicle offers an unequal level of mobility. The single-occupant private vehicle has been such a dominant choice that travelers have been willing to pay substantial capital and operating costs, confront high levels of congestion, and struggle with parking-related problems just have the flexibility in travel departure time and destination choices that is uniquely provided by private vehicles. Managing traffic congestion is an extreme complex problem with significant economic, social, environmental, and political implications. So guys, ang sinasabi lang dito sa passenger transportation mode and traffic congestion, so sabi nga kanina, di ba, meron tayong iba't ibang klase ng highway transportation. So we have the single occupant, so ito yung mga mga kotse, multi-occupant private vehicle, yung mga van, and the public transportation modes, yung mga bus. So because of that, kadalasan kasi, so base dun din sa mga data na provided dito sa ating libro, Ang sinasabi kasi dyan that most of people ay merong sariling sasakyan. So, ang sabi dito, before, yung average private vehicle occupancy has dropped from 1.22 to 1.09. So, almost yung isang tao, meron siyang isang sasakyan, which is before 1.22 pa. Okay? And because of that, ang ano kasi dito, guys, is kapag meron kang private vehicle, flexible ka kasi unlike sa mga public transportation, kasi sa ibang lugar, dito lang naman kasi sa Pinas na kung saan mo matripan na bumaba, doon ka pwedeng ibaba. But doon sa ibang bansa, meron kasi silang sistema, meron talagang bus stop o yung tigilan ng mga public vehicle. Kung saan if nasa bandang gitna yung pupuntahan mo, syempre maglalakad ka pa din. Ano? And at the same time, meron kasing schedule yan, yung pag-alis at pagdating ng mga bus. So, unlike kapag may sarili kang vehicle, madali kang sa time management. Kung kailan mo gusto maalisan, umalis, pwede kang umalis kasi meron kang private vehicle. But ang problema lang kasi dito, kung lahat tayo ay may sariling sasakyan and yung highway system mo is na-design lang for a specific volume ng traffic, so expect mo na laging magkakaroon ka ng congestion o matinding traffic ang kalalabasan niyan. So kung maraming sasakyan sa highway, so dyan na rin papasok yung mga iba't ibang impact. So meron kang environmental, economic, and political implication. Okay, so dako tayo sa sunod. The 1.5.2 or the highway safety. Again, basahin natin sabay-sabay. So safety has always been a primary consideration in highway design and operation. Highway continue to exact a terrible toll in loss of life, injuries, property damage, and reduced productivity as a result of vehicle accident. Highway safety involves technical and behavioral components and the complexity of the human-machine interface. Because of the high cost of highway accidents, efforts to improve the highway safety have been intensified dramatically in recent decades. So this has resulted in the implementation of new highway design guidelines and countermeasures, so some technical and some behavioral, aimed at reducing the frequency and severity of highway accidents. Okay, so ang prone dito sa mga highway accident is kahit naman na mabagal lang yung takbo ng sasakyan, kung talagang yung mga driver is pasaway, talaga magkakaroon ng aksidente. Pero kadalasan yung mga severe na accident na nangyayari is dun sa mga expressway or kapag madaling araw, which is kakaunti yung volume ng traffic, so mabilis yung takbo talaga ng mga sasakyan and very prone sa accident. Isa pang factor na naka-apekto sa accident is yung human error. Minsan kasi, lalo kapag madaling araw, so mabilis talaga magpatakbo yung mga tao. And kapag madaling araw, yan, mga galing sa inuman, so nagdadrive sila under the influence of alcohol and sometimes drugs. Okay, so because of this, there have been several efforts para mabawasan itong mga cause ng accident. So, isa dito is yung pag-i-improve mismo doon sa mismong design ng sasakyan. So, meron na siyang mga safety features. So, yan ako lang dito. So, yung ilan dito is yung sa mga safety belts. So, mas in-improve nila yung design. Padded dashboards and collapsible steering columns. The driver and passenger side airbags, yung mga airbags natin. And the improved bumper design. So, di ba kapag nagde-design ng sasakyan, meron nga sila dito na mga crash dummies. So, talagang ibinabangga nila yung sasakyan para ma-design nila ng mas maayos at mas safe sa consumer o sa user nito just in case na magkaroon sila ng major highway accident. Okay? And in terms naman doon sa ibang countermeasures, so mas dinadagdagan nila yung campaign to reduce the drunk driving. Okay. So, isang factor pa dito is yung since nag-i-improve na rin tayo sa design ng sasakyan, kaso yung iba nga, ang pagpipili kasi ng sasakyan, kahit naman ako, if papapiliin ka between a sports car na design and this traditional design ng kotse, considering the same price, so syempre doon pupunta sa maporma. Ang nangyayari kasi, instead of choosing a car with the safety features, mas pinipili kasi ng karamihan is yung forma lang o yung aesthetic value, which is kung saan yung iba is merong mas mataas na rollover probability o yung rollover anong tawag doon? Paggulong ng sasakyan. Okay, so this time we will now proceed with the democratic trends. Okay, so basahin natin. Travelers' commuting patterns which lead to traffic congestion are inextricably intertwined with such socio-economic characteristics as age, income, household size, education, and job type, as well as the distribution of residential, commercial, and industrial developments within the region. So, basahin natin kung ba't ganun daw yung nangyayari. So, many American metropolitan areas have experienced population declines in central cities accompanied by a growth in suburban areas. This mobility enabled people to improve their quality of life by gaining access to affordable housing and land while still being able to get to jobs in the central city with acceptable travel times. Ongoing Demographic trends also present engineers with an ever-moving target that further complicates the problem of providing mobility and safety. One of these is the advances in medical technology that prolong life. Now, because older people tend to have slower reaction times, taking longer to respond to driving situations that require action, the engineer must confront the possibility of changing highway design guidelines and practices to accommodate the slower reaction time and the potentially higher variance of reaction time among highway users. Okay, so ang sinasabi lang dyan guys is that, for example, in the America, doon sa mga areas kung saan dapat doon sa central cities ina-expect na magkakaroon ng increase in the population or ng mga tenant or nakatira doon, now nagkakaroon ng decline sa mga nakatira doon sa mga central cities and accompanied by a growth in the suburban areas o doon sa mga hindi gaano dapat na mataong lugar. Since ang design mo nga, so because of the planning, the city planning in their region, yung design kasi nila doon sa central cities, doon sa mga central cities, is mas malalapad o mas maraming lane yung mga highway doon compared doon sa mga suburban areas. But because of the decline in the population or the tenant nga doon sa central cities, anong nangyari, lumipat sila doon sa mga masisikip na daan. Kung saan, because of this, yung decrease nga doon sa wide ng karsada and expected na mas maraming sasakyan ngayon doon, so mas, ano nangyari doon sa iyong highway system. So nagkaroon ng suffer o nag-suffer yung iyong mga arsada. So ngayon, doon nagkaroon ng congestion kung saan doon sa makikipot pa na karsada, doon dumami yung sasakyan. Okay? So isang dahil nga dito is yung naging ratio doon sa mga sasakyan para naging 1:1. So wala, nagkandaletsya na. Okay, so another thing there is the advancement in the medical technology kung saan nag-result ito sa paghaba ng buhay ng mga tao. So since ganun nga yung nangyari, so sa pagtanda mo kasi mas bumabagal yung iyong reaction time. So later on, upon sa pag-progress natin dito sa core subject na to, mas maunawaan nyo yung meaning reaction time. Meron, kung nakaalala ko before, meron siyang computation na ino-consider yung reaction time. Parang braking distance yata yun. So ano naman yan? Direct substitution. Formula-based. Ayun nga. So, kailangan i-redesign ng mga engineers yung design ng highway para ma-accommodate yung mga slower reaction time o yung mas matatanda na gumagamit ng highway system. Okay, so this time we will now discuss the highways and evolving technologies. So basahin natin. So, as in all fields, the technological advances at least offer the promise of solving complex problems. For highways, technologies can be classified into those impacting infrastructure, vehicles, and traffic control. So, unahin natin guys is yung infrastructure technologies. So 1.6.1. So investment in highway infrastructures have been made continuously throughout the 20th and 21st centuries. Such investments have understandably varied over the years in response to need and political and national priorities. The economic and political climate that permitted such an ambitious construction program has not been replicated before or since. So, di ba yung interstate highway do sa US, so yun daw yung pinakamalaking infrastructure project and ever since, hindi pa daw siya ulit nagagawa ng tao. So it is difficult to imagine in today's economic and political environment that a project of the magnitude of the interstate highway system would ever be seriously considered. This is because of the prohibitive costs associated with land acquisition and construction and the community and environmental impacts that would result. Okay, so let's proceed to the next slide. So this time, vehicle technologies. So basahin ulit natin. Until the 1970s, vehicle technologies evolved slowly and often in response to mild trends in the vehicle market as opposed to an underlying trend toward technological developments. Beginning in the 1970s, however, three factors began a cycle of unparalleled advances in vehicle technology that continue up to this day. So ano yung unang regulation na tinutupad dito? So the first one is the government regulation on air quality, fuel efficiency, and vehicle occupant safety. So yun nga, so di ba yung ating highway transportation or yung by means of land travel and to be specific is using this vehicle. So di ba sila yung main contributor ng pollution sa kahit saan lugar, ano? So that's why yung government natin nag-provide ng regulations para yung mga emission na lumalabas sa sakyan is much more friendly in terms of air quality. At the same time, so dapat fuel efficient ka, hindi ka masyado nagbaburn ng ano. And occupant safety. So because of these accidents, di ba, nagkakos siya ng traffic, and with traffic, nakatigil yung sasakyan habang continuous yung pag-consume niya o pag-burn ng fuel, which cause pollution. Number 2, energy shortages and fuel price increase. So isang factor din ito sa pagtaas ng fuel price. So if your car is fuel efficient, so ibig sabihin mas kaunting purchase lang yung kailangan mo. Kaunting fuel purchase lang yung mangyayari. And then yung energy shortages. So since nagkakaroon din naman tayo ng limited source o nagkakahirapan na sa pagkuha ng source ng iyong fuel, so isang factor din yun. Next, intense competition among vehicle manufacturers. Ayan. So, ito naman, may magandang effect din naman to kasi kung meron kang competition, so pagandaan sila ng design ng sasakyan. So, with that, mas magiging, ayun, yung ano mo sa number 1. So, mas updated model in terms of air quality emission, mas okay siya, fuel efficiency, mas okay din, and safety. Ano? So the aggregate effect of these factors have been vehicle consumers that demand new technology at highly competitive prices. Vehicle manufacturers have found it necessary to reallocate resources and to restructure manufacturing and inventory control processes to meet all this demand. So let's proceed with 1.6.3. So this time is the traffic control technologies. Intersection traffic signals are a familiar traffic control technology. So yung mga traffic signals mo no, sa mga intersection. At signalized intersections, the trade-off between mobility and safety is brought into sharp focus. Procedures for developing traffic signal control plans have made significant advances over the years. Today, signals at critical intersection can be designed to respond quickly to prevailing traffic flows. Group of signal can be coordinated to provide a smooth through flow of traffic. And in some cases, computers control have entire network of signals. So, ayun nga. So, yung mga traffic signals mo is naka-sync sa bawat isa. And then with the use of a computer, so mas naging sila, systematized. Galing. Numerous traffic control technologies offer the potential for considerable improvement in the efficient use of the highway infrastructure, but one must also recognize the limitation associated with these technologies. Okay, so minsan kasi kung mapapansin nyo sa mga lalo dito sa atin sa Pinas, pag hindi na kaya ng gamit yung traffic signal, so dyan papasok yung human factor. So may TDRO na nagko-control sa traffic. Kasi because of the volume, hindi na nagagawa ng function sa traffic signal or hindi pa na kakaroon ng reformat or redesign sa network sa signal sa mga traffic signal. So hindi pa nila nagagawa ng panibagong siguro yan sa computer. Last will be the scope of study. So highway engineering and traffic analysis involve an extremely complex interaction of economic, behavioral, social, political, environmental, and technological factors. This complexity makes highway engineering and traffic analysis far more challenging than typical engineering disciplines that tend to have an overriding focus only on the technical aspects of the problem. So sinasabi dito that yung ating highway engineering and traffic analysis, so siya daw yung pinaka-challenging compared sa other typical engineering disciplines. So siguro this is one of the reasons kung bakit kaunti lang talaga yung nagpursue ng ganitong career. Siguro medyo stressful siya kasi ito nga habang binabasa ko pa lang, talaga nakaka-stress din naman pala. So, ito minor lang, no? So, sa totoo lang guys, parang ngayon ko lang din siya na-appreciate. So, habang binabasa ko siya, mas nagkaaroon ako ng idea. Kasi kung noon, since minor nga ito, hindi ko siya masyadong binigyan ng pansin. So, napaka-importante pala nitong highway and railroad engineering or the transportation engineering. To be sure, the technical challenges encountered in highway engineering and traffic analysis easily rival the most complex technical problems encountered in any other engineering discipline. Grabe. The remaining chapter in this book do not intend to provide a comprehensive assessment of the many factors that influence highways engineering and traffic analysis. Instead, chapters 2 to 3 seek to provide readers with the fundamental elements and methodological approaches that are used to design and maintain highways and assess their operation performance. So meaning, puro computation lang. Design magdi-design kayo eh. This material constitutes the fundamental principles of highway engineering and traffic analysis that are needed to begin to grasp the many complex elements and considerations that come into play during the construction, maintenance, and operation of highways. Okay guys, that ends the first module, the module 1, the introduction to highway and railroad engineering. So, next module, so ayun nga, so nasa nyo naman yan, I think computation ito. So, ready kayo sa inyong calculator and better provide the scratch paper. So, habang dinidiscuss natin through video tutorial is nasasabayan nyo din. Okay, so again, that ends our discussion. So if you like the video, please hit the like button. And if you have some comments, recommendation, please write it in the comment section below. And later, mag-upload ako ng ipapagawa sa inyo for this chapter 1. May naisip akong activity. So, pakigawa na lang. Okay, so guys, peace out. Thanks for watching. Babush.